So a lot of times when you go into a good book with low expectations, you end up liking it even more than you would have if you had just gone in otherwise. Pretty sure that's what happened to me with this book. Hey guys, it's Susanna from Peachy Keen Reviews, and I'm here to talk to you guys today about Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. If you do not know, this is a fantasy, young adult type book about this girl named Celaena, and she is the most notorious assassin in the world in this fantasy world. And about a year before the book takes place, she got arrested. She was found, she got arrested, and so she got taken to this like slave camp called Endovier. So the book starts and she's in this camp, she's hating it, and then the prince shows up. The prince of the kingdom shows up and he's like, "So I've got a proposition for you." What? "Well, you see, my dad, the king, he is having a competition to find a champion, or like his personal assassin, and I want you to be my representative." "Why would I do that?" "Well, if you do that, I can give you your freedom in 6 years. "Oh, I like freedom. I kinda want to slit your throats right now, but I mean, that's not gonna get me any closer to freedom. Yeah, I'll do it." "Yeah, you're also really hot." "What?"
What you say?
She goes with the Prince of Aderlin. I don't have the copy of the book with me, so I don't remember what it's actually called. I'm pretty sure it's Aderlan, something like that. Anyways, so she goes to the kingdom with the prince, and she's at the castle, and it's this huge castle. Everybody comments on it, and so she's in this competition to become the king's assassin. However, as the competition starts, they have tests throughout to eliminate different people who they know aren't going to be the king's assassin, and a couple days before the first test, one of the competitors is brutally murdered. I'm not talking about he fell down the stairs or his throat was slit. No, like, this dude was massacred. He was in ribbons, his vital organs were gone, his brain was stolen. It was a mess, and everybody's trying to figure out what's going on, and then they have the test, and then it happens again. And so everybody's trying to figure out what the heck is going on, what is killing, who is killing these competitors. I loved this book. I didn't really expect to love this book because I had heard a lot of good things about it, but I also heard a lot of generic things. I heard things like, "Oh yeah, Celaena, she's awesome, she's like a badass. Oh my gosh, I just love her so much. Love triangle, it's just great." And I was like, I'm not really interested in that. I don't really like love triangles. I've heard characters described as that before, and they really weren't. They were actually pretty dull. It just never really grabbed my attention. But like 3 or 4 times I would check it out from the library anyway, and I would have it and I would use all my renewals for it, but I would never read it. I would just keep it with me, and that happened a couple times. But this past week I saw that it was on its last renewal and it was due in 2 days, and I was like, you know, I think I'm just gonna open it up and read the first couple chapters. Like, I'm not really expecting much, so I'm just gonna read these first couple chapters, and then I can take it back to the library and I can know that I don't really want to, you know, pick it up again. Well, I start reading and I get a couple chapters into it and I am in love with it. I think it's great. I love the characters. I love the story. I'm ready to figure out what's going on. I am immersed. That is Throne of Glass without any spoilers. If you haven't read it, then my review is absolutely yes, go read it. If you're new to fantasy, if you're old to fantasy, if you like young adult books, if you don't like young adult books, if you enjoy a good fantasy story with a little bit of mystery and maybe a little romance and really interesting characters, this book is for you. I totally recommend you go pick it up right now and read it. And then read it and come back and we can talk about it right here, right now. Let's do this. So, the characters. I'm going to start with Celaena because I did not expect to love her as much as I do. I was expecting her to be very much the stereotypical young adult protagonist who doesn't think very high of herself and she is very whiny but also somehow sarcastic and sassy and very dumb, and even with all those traits, she's got two gorgeous, amazing guys fawning over her. I didn't think I was gonna like this girl, but I did. I loved her. She was strong and she was very confident in herself. She was very sharp-tongued. She always had a very clever comeback for Dorian. She always put him in his place. She was not afraid to tell that boy what he needed to hear, and it was very in character, unlike other times when other girls may do that to like impress him, even though if she were a real person, she would never be able to do that. No, Celaena, she was able to do it great. And I loved that. And I even loved the arrogance that she had in the beginning of the competition where Chaol was telling her, yo, you need to like lower your skills a bit, like this is a great tactic for you, you need to stay in the middle so nobody thinks you're a threat. And she was like, oh no, I need everybody to see how awesome I am. I love getting credit. And I'm like, yes, if you have it and you know you're talented, like embrace that. I loved that she thought that. And then eventually she kind of realized, oh, maybe showing off isn't the best idea for me, so I'm gonna back off just a little bit. She learned, she grew in this book. I loved her. Now, Chaol and Dorian, oh my goodness. When I was reading, when I started to read, I somehow missed a line that specified that Chaol was captain of the guard, and so for like the first chapter and a half, I kept getting them confused because it would go in between saying captain of the guard and crown prince and Dorian and Chaol, and so I couldn't keep track of them. And so I was like, wait, now, is Chaol the prince? Yeah, Chaol's the prince. No, wait a second, Dorian is the prince. Am I sure? Yes. Chaol's captain of the guard, Dorian is the prince. I got this. Now, I know a lot of people who loved Dorian, but I didn't see him as someone she could truly romantically like. I preferred Chaol. I liked Chaol more than Dorian. Not to say I preferred his character over Dorian, just for Celaena, I preferred Chaol, because throughout the novel, when Celaena is describing Dorian, she's talking about wanting to kiss him and all that stuff, but she never really likes his personality. Honestly, she gets annoyed with him at times and thinks that she's better than him, and he even notices that. He describes their relationship as cat and mouse. She thinks he's interesting and pretty, so she's gonna play with him a little bit, but there's no real substance in the relationship, and I totally think that's fine. I thought it was great that Celaena could be like, okay, I don't want to focus on these boys right now. Honestly, I gotta focus on winning this competition and figuring out what the heck is going on with these murders. But like Dorian keeps coming over here and like wanting to make out with me, and so like in my free time I guess I'll do that, but outside of my free time I'm not gonna worry about that. I'm gonna worry about the present situation here. And I loved that because so many times in young adult novels there'll be this huge issue going on, but all the protagonist can think about is, oh, do I love him or do I love him? Girl, you are in a world that is falling apart. Focus. This isn't the biggest issue right now. And I honestly thought that was a lot like Katniss, because Katniss definitely showed that in Hunger Games, and I love the love triangle in Hunger Games just because Katniss doesn't worry about it. She's not focused on it. She has bigger things on her mind, and I loved that. So I love Dorian, but I also think of him as like a fun best friend. I don't think of him romantically, not even for me, like as a fictional character. I didn't like him that way at all. I thought he was funny. I loved the banter that he and Selena had, but other than that, I wasn't really interested in him. I was much more interested in Chaol. And I think part of the reason is that as I was reading, I kept envisioning Chaol as Frederick. And if you don't know, Frederick is a character in a video game called Fire Emblem Awakening. And I kept reading and I was like, oh my gosh, that's Frederick. Oh my gosh, that's Frederick. And I kept imagining him as Frederick. And I couldn't get it out of my head. And I kept trying to make Dorian be Chrom, but it just didn't work. And then obviously, Selena's no Sumia. That's not right. Very, very different personalities. But no, Chaol was Frederick in my mind, and I can't get that mental image out of my head. So some other characters. Coltane. I was really worried when Coltane was introduced because Selena meets her and she instantly dislikes this chick, and I'm like, oh no, not again. Because again, in lots of books, the young adult female protagonist will see other females as the enemy. She will see them as a threat, and she will want nothing to do with them. It is very girl versus girl, and I do not like that in novels. Most of the time, it's usually just the female protagonist and a bunch of guys, and I don't like that. So when she met Coltane and didn't like her, I was nervous. I was worried. Like, I was about to put this on my criticism list, like, oh no, like, I'm not cool with this. But then Nehemia came, and I loved Nehemia. I wanted to be her friend, just like Selena was. And okay, that's what I love about Sarah J. Maas's writing, is even though I had my own opinions outside of the novel, while I was reading, I felt what Selena felt. Like, and when she was going around suspecting people, when she suspected Nehema, I suspected her. I thought it was her. And when she was around Dorian, I liked Dorian. Now, outside of reading, I didn't like Dorian, but while I was reading from her point of view, I was thinking about Dorian more than Chaol. And that's how she worked. And I really, really liked that, because it's very rare, especially in third person, to really truly feel what the character you're reading is feeling, and it was very, very well done. Now, let's talk about the murders and more on Kaltane. So, one of the big plot points is that during this competition, people are being murdered horribly. And you do find out at the end that it was Cain who did it. Through a series of events with the Fae Queen, Elena, we get to see Selena not vanquish him, but defeat him in the final duel. She wins. She's now the new King's Champion. Everything is great. Except he tries to knife her in the back, and Chaol's like, no! And stabs him. And Cain's gone. He's out of the picture, and the Duke is furious. Then the scene shifts, and Selena is talking with Nehemia, and she's learning about how Nehemia was casting all the demon creatures, who I don't remember what they were called, but it was the thing that Cain was summoning to kill the other competitors. And she was talking to Selena, and she was like, yeah, it was such a pain. I had to send them back constantly. Somebody had taught this guy how to summon them well, but he didn't teach them how to banish them, to send them back to their old world. So she had to do that. And Selena speculates that he learned how to summon these creatures with the Widmarks in the White Fang Mountains with the witches. And Nehemiah's like, yeah, probably, but I wish he were alive to ask. I don't think he learned how to cast in the White Fang Mountains because they said that it was full of magic users and witches. And if he is learning from experienced witches and magic users, they're obviously going to tell him that he has to send them back. So either one of two things. Either he did learn from them and he purposely didn't send them back and he wanted them to roam free in the castle, or he didn't learn from them. And I think that the person he did learn from was the king or the duke. I think one of those two taught him how to do that and encouraged him to do it. And I think it makes a lot of sense because you see in the end when things you think are wrapping up, but the king is talking with the duke. And here comes the Kaltain plotline again. Every time she had a point of view chapter, she was always talking about her head hurting and not feeling well, and so she would take opium to help with that, but you could tell in the book that it wasn't helping and she was getting progressively worse. And you kind of wonder, is it the opium that's doing that to her? Like, is it helping her or harming her? But she's still determined to marry Dorian. And I love that dynamic. I think that if the roles had been switched and the Duke was the prince and Dorian was the Duke, she would still want to marry whoever the crown prince was, because she doesn't talk, because while she does say she doesn't want to be tethered to that face for the rest of her life, she also never talks about loving Dorian. She talks about loving the title. And so I totally think that if those roles had been reversed, she would still be after the prince and nothing else. Anyways, so she is going on this huge plot to try to win away Dorian from Celaena because she wants to marry this dude. She wants to be the queen. She's determined. And so she hatches a plan with the Duke, who she's promised herself to, even though she doesn't like him at all, and she's hoping to ditch him and go to Dorian, like work her way up. And so they devise this plan that they're going to poison Celaena's drink before the tournament, so that way she is phased and drugged so she can't focus during the tournament and Cain could beat her. So what we see is she poisons the drink, but again, obviously it doesn't work. Celaena wins and the Duke turns her in. He's like, "What? You poisoned her drink? Guards, arrest her!" And she's like, "How dare you? This was your idea." And she's dragged to the dungeon. So you get this scene with the king and the Duke. And the king's like, "Wow, your powers are coming along great, you know, with the strength thing from Chaol and the manipulation of Kaltain. Like, you might want to dumb it down a little so nobody suspects, but I'm really interested to see where this can go." And the Duke's like, "Oh yeah, I'm getting more powerful." And I'm like, whoa! But it totally makes sense, because if the king is cool with magic and the Duke is using magic, why? And the Duke wanted Cain to win, and Cain was obviously corrupt, even if they didn't explicitly say it, like, he was summoning demons to help himself win. This was not a good dude. And so I think that the Duke or the king, or both, went up to this dude and was like, "You have to get this job, but for looks, you have to enter this competition. But here's the spell, and you can get the strength of all these people if you just summon this creature, and you're good to go." And it would make sense because they're not well-practiced magic users, or at least they're not confirmed to be. They would have no clue that you had to send those things back. They may have just thought that you send them back and they may have just thought that you summon them and then they just disappear forever once they're out of your sight. They may have had no clue. And so I'm really interested to see if I'm right or if they even discuss it in the next book. I had to turn in my copy to the library yesterday but today I ended up ordering the first one in paperback so I could like make my own notes in it, because I already memorized, like I know what I want to highlight and what I want to scribble in, and I know if I go back and reread it I'm going to want to do that as well, like going back and rereading it. And I ordered the next book, Crown of Midnight, which I've heard very good things. I'm very much hoping that the book lives up to this one. I've heard it's even better. I don't know. I can't wait to read it. It should be here soon. Hopefully. I can't wait. I'm just so eager to read more of the series. I've heard amazing things and just, I'm excited. So, that was my opinions of the book. I would love to hear what you thought of this book. I want to know if you're Team Chaol or Team Dorian. I want to know if you agree or disagree with my theory about the King and the Duke. And I want to hear what you thought of the book. I want to know your opinions. So like comment down below and let me know. Thanks for watching. Bye guys!